What's up? What's up? What's up? What's up, everybody? Good morning, good afternoon, good whatever, wherever it is you are listening to this podcast. As we continue to make waves through Black History Month, where we've been trying to highlight not just the history of Black folks, but folks who are right now today contributing, as so many of our great foremothers and forefathers have, to not just a moment, but really to the arc of history. And today I am joined by one of those people who is making such contributions. He needs no introduction here on Real Talk. But just so that you know, we got in the house radio host, businessman, mogul, author, cultural icon, father, husband, and great friend. What's up, Charlamagne the God?
AG, what's happening, my brother? Father, husband, great friend, radio host. I can vouch for all that other stuff. If you believe that, thank you.
Come on, man. Come on. I know you trying to be real humble with us, brother. But you honestly, man, you inspire me in so many ways. And I got to tell the truth, which is I was introduced to Charlamagne through a mutual friend and our sister, Angela Rye.
That's right.
And I was running for governor of Florida. We both love her like a sister because she is that, a constant motivator and pusher. Absolutely. And I've been blessed to be able to have access to you, my friend. And I'm thankful for you allowing me the opportunity to chat with you for just a little while as we wrap up Black History Month.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, man. And, you know, Angela is that, Angela's like that conduit, right? Like if there's 6 degrees of separation between people, she's like that catalyst in the middle connecting all the dots.
Very much so, man. You give her a really nice shout out in your book. You're an author of 2 books, and my most recent read, everybody, is obviously Shook One, where I just gained a different kind of appreciation. Your first book, obviously very powerful and an important message to continue to proclaim, but to see a Black man, particularly a Black man that has such credibility with other Black men, not to mention everybody else where you got credibility, to talk about a third rail, to talk about an issue that we don't often give a lot of voice to within the Black community, mental health. To see that, brother, man, just inspired me in so many ways. And so with that as a setup, man, will you please tell me what happened, what moment, what incident, what development in your life gave you the courage, the freedom, I don't give a whatness, or I care that much about us that I'm willing to speak really openly about anxiety, mental health, and the chronic stress that often confronts our community. Was there something?
Yeah, I think it was actually a moment of peace. You know, it was a moment of peace because I was on vacation, and I was on vacation with my family and, you know, my in-laws and my parents and my mom and, you know, friends. And man, I had a feeling of freeness that I hadn't felt in a long time. It was just a light feeling, like there was no anxiety, you know, no depression, no worry, no nothing. And I was just sitting there like, man, you know, how can I feel like this all the time?
Yeah.
And then I had been complaining to my wife, you know, like we've been together over 20 plus years. So she know about my panic attacks and things like that. She just finally said to me, man, like, why don't you just go to therapy? Like literally. And mind you, you know, my wife had told me that, and then people like Angela, people like Amanda Seals, and just having conversations even with different people who used to come to the Breakfast Club, and they would tell me how, you know, they would go to therapy. So it just got to a point where I stopped flirting with the idea of it. And I was just like, man, let me go deal with this anxiety.
Yeah.
Because these panic attacks can't be normal, right? Because when you're young and you're in a certain environment, you know, moving the way I was moving, you think it's a certain paranoia that comes with that, right? But then, you know, I remember having a panic attack. The first time I ever had a panic attack and had the language for it was 10 years ago. It was 2010, and I had just gotten fired from radio for the 4th time. I was back living at home with my mom. I think I was 31, 32 years old. My daughter was like 1 or 2. And I'm collecting unemployment checks, and I'm driving down I-26 in South Carolina, man. And I just have this like, I'm about to die. Like this is it. Like I'm having a heart attack. And mind you, I had gone to the hospital 3 or 4 times for that in my life before, and it was always nothing. But this time I was like, I went to the hospital. I told the doctor what was going on. He checked my heart, told me the same thing that every other doctor told me. You got a perfect heart. You got an athlete's heart. But that was the first time somebody said to me, yo, do you have anxiety? And I was like, anxiety? Yeah. And he was like, yo, it sounds like you're having panic attacks. And I said, a panic attack. And then he asked me, was I stressed out about anything? And I'm like, hell yeah.
Right. I'm living.
So in my mind, I was just like, okay, all I got to do is get another job. Once I get another job, everything will be fine. Next job I got was the Breakfast Club. But, 4 or 5 years later, you've made more money than you ever made in your life. You're having, tremendous success. Show is nationally syndicated, New York Times best-selling books, but you're still having those panic attacks. I don't, so yeah. I'm not living that lifestyle no more. Yeah. I'm still having these panic attacks. So I'm like, what is going on? So I just thought something was wrong with my brain, honestly, neurologically, but it wasn't. It was just the fact that I needed to sit down and talk to somebody. And when I sat down and, started having conversations with my therapist, started peeling back all these other layers, of things that I didn't even know was wrong, traumas that I had been suppressing.
Yeah.
But didn't know that they were actually impacting me in my adulthood, things that happened from my childhood. And I mean, man, that's such a raw, vulnerable place to be, AG. And it's like, there's no way I could get on the radio every day and have conversations about other people and about what other people are going through and not talk about what I'm going through, especially me, because I've always been the person that's transparent, that always tells you what's going on in my life. So to sit down in that room every day and not be living my truth, man, it was just driving me crazy. So I just started talking about it. Like, hey, I got therapy Friday at 3:00 to deal with my anxiety, deal with my depression. And next thing I know, it became this conversation.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So,
well, I'm gonna tell you, man, I don't know the number of souls that you've inspired through that, brother, but I will tell you, my crashing and also knowing that it was okay following your example to talk to somebody. I was most terrified of the fact that my therapist was going to learn something about me that I didn't want other people knowing. I was terrified about, frankly, confronting not just my demons, but the intergenerational trauma, which you talked about, and you talk about it in more extended terms in the book, but your trauma with your father. And one of the things that I learned from my therapist, and you may have heard this before too, as adults, we're being triggered by certain things somebody said or what they did or what they wrote us. And she reminded me to be thoughtful about whether or not the adult version of Andrew Gillum was being triggered or whether the wounded child in me, the stuff that at my earliest memory that I can't even recall, is showing up. And so you giving voice to the fact that it isn't just whether you're in poverty and struggling for a job and trying to be a good dad and partner to your girl or whatever, but even when you got certain levels of success, if you haven't addressed some of these things, those issues still continue to show up.
Absolutely. I mean, I love my dad, right? And I've learned to have a different appreciation for my father now, simply because, he was a man doing the best he could with what he had.
Yeah.
And I think one thing we take for granted is the fact that we're probably the first generation that has the luxury of healing,
brother.
You know what I mean? Like my dad dealt with. I didn't realize this till 2 years ago. Actually, when I put out Shook One, I think that was 2018.
Yep.
I put out Shook One, and it was Thanksgiving, and I had a younger cousin who had killed himself. He was like 20-something years old, and that was the 4th time he tried to kill himself. And he used to work with my father all the time because my father does construction. So between that and then my father reading my book, he just told me, he was like, man, I was going to therapy 2 and 3 times a week, and I tried to kill myself 30 years ago. And I've been on 10 to 12 different medications throughout my life. And, he was like, they just ended up giving me a check every month. I get a check every month, a crazy check. And I remember going to my mom and telling my mom, like, yo, Pops was dealing with all that. And my mom was like, yo, I just thought he was playing crazy to get a check. You know what I'm saying? But when he told me that, man, that was so freeing, Andrew. It was so freeing for me because I was holding like this resentment towards him. Because I was thinking about the times that he slapped me upside my head when I was young or punished me because I didn't know how to do things he didn't teach me.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? Yep. And so then I had resentment towards him because of how him and my mom turned out,
Yep.
him cheating on my mom and getting, them getting divorced. But then I just realized as I got older and going to therapy and him telling me that, man, it was so freeing because I realized my father was just a man
Yep.
doing the best he could with what he had,
That's real.
and even though we're the generation that has the luxury of healing and the luxury of thriving, man, they was just trying to survive.
I get it. I get it, man.
I can't judge nobody for what they was doing in survival mode.
Charlamagne, you talked, and you talk openly about people who are living regular everyday lives, comparing their lived experiences to everybody else's highlight reel.
Mm-hmm.
2020 Radio Hall of Famer, New York Times bestselling author, founder of Black Effect Podcast Network, just a dad. In every single way, your highlight reel is inspiring. But I want you to talk a moment, and you hit on this a question ago, about your experience losing your job for the fourth time. You talk in the book about, I guess it was the third time, from working with Wendy Williams and then going back home to South Carolina and living with your mom for a year, unclear about the way forward. So much of your book to me was an inspiring story of also survival and then thriving. Talk to us, if you don't mind, just about that place, if you can go there again, losing your job, going back home. How did you muster whatever was required to get renewed belief in yourself to get back up?
Man, good old fashioned sovereign faith.
Yeah.
Good old fashioned belief in a higher power.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Growing up a Jehovah's Witness and, constantly going to the Kingdom Hall and Bible study and constantly praying. My grandmother was a Baptist. My father was a Jehovah's Witness as well, but then he started studying Islam. So I had all of this different faith in a higher power coming from all angles. Like as long as I can remember, I was down on my knees praying to God. And, when that happened, man, honestly, my mindset has always been the same. When it comes to God, it's like, I always say anything good that happens in my life is God. Anything bad that happens in my life is just me or circumstance, And a lot of those times, I would dig deep and always ask myself, okay, what did I do in this situation that caused X, Y, and Z to happen? But when I look at the 4 times I got fired, it literally was just the way the radio business shook out. The first time I ever left a radio station, I gave my 2 weeks to go get a full-time job. Second time I got fired, a new program director came in. Even though I had high ratings, he wanted to bring his people in. Cool. Went to another radio station, the Big DM, 101.3 in Columbia. They were hip-hop and R&B, then they flipped formats. Nothing I could do about that. But I ended up at Hot 103.9 because the company that bought, that owned Big DM bought Hot 103.9, which ended up being Inner City Broadcasting. That was the same company that owned WBLS. So I got demoted from Hot 103.9 for being a rebel. You know what I mean? Wow. Like being a rebel and actually, I was actually challenging this system in Columbia, South Carolina. It was this club, and the club had a bad reputation, for treating people wrong. And the owner of the club had got one of the managers had got arrested, and so I challenged him, not on the radio, but on my MySpace page at the time. But he was an advertiser for the radio station. So, MySpace. So they ended up promoting me. I was on 6 days a week. They demoted me to 1. But then Wendy snatched me up. And then when I was at Wendy's show, it was 2008. That's when the economy was in the toilet. So they fired like 30 people, and I was one of them. So even when I went to Philly, same thing. I had high ratings, but they brought in a new program director. He wanted to bring somebody else in.
Yeah.
For me, those were just the breaks of the game. And as I'm older now, I look back and I say, there's no such thing as good or bad in life. Everything is just part of a process. It just is. Like, that's just how I feel. So whatever comes my way, I just deal with it, and I ask myself, okay, if I made a poor choice here, that's on me. If not, that's just the way God wants things to shake out. And that's just honestly what my mindset was when I was back in South Carolina. I was like, all right, if this is where God wants me to be right now, I'm going to figure out why he wants me to be here. And I mean, I did some dope things while I was there for that year. And I never forget my homegirl, Kendra G. I got to shout out Kendra G, and I always shout her out. Because she told me, she said, yo, go home, spend as much time with your family as you possibly can, because when you get back in position, you're not going to have time.
Wow.
10 years later, she never lied.
You believed that even then.
Yes.
Even
10
then.
years later, 10 years later, she never lied, So I enjoyed that year that I was, back home with my mom. And I helped launch a radio station down there in Charleston, South Carolina with my man, Michael T., who passed away. God bless the dead. He was the program director of the station down there. And now I'm syndicated on that same station, 99.3 The Box in Charleston. So, man, that's just the way life is. But my only thing that kept me going was just faith in a higher power and just knowing that, man, if I know God has something next for me. But even if he didn't, I already have made up my mind, like, I'm going to work here in radio in Charleston, and I'm going to do what I got to do to feed my family. If I'm going to be down here making 60, 70 grand a year, fine. I'm cool with that. As long as I'm alive and my family is good, I was fine with that. But God was like, nah, I got something a little bigger.
Got more for you. Yeah. Charlamagne, I think people will be encouraged by that. A lot of folks are going through a season right now. Feel like they've been in a season. And my purpose for asking the question that way was so that you could illuminate. I related a lot to your reliance on faith, but I also, related a lot to, and you talk about this in your book as well, the things you can't control and how much spent energy we put into obsessing over the things that are really out of our control rather than focusing on the stuff that we do have power over, which isn't much, but what we do have power over, to exercise that. Well, brother, we are long past those days of wondering what's next, man. You have become a lot, but I'll phrase it this way. One of the things you have become is a must-stop location, the Breakfast Club, with your coworkers and colleagues, DJ Envy and Angela Yee, for people who are pursuing high office all around the country, to include the presidency of the United States. I think probably every major candidate in competing in the Democratic primary came through there. And even prior to that, in 2016, you had Hillary Clinton in the meme that would not stop was the hot sauce in the purse, and so on and so forth. Brother, what sense of responsibility do you feel when you're interacting with that level of power and potential power? And what is that thing that you have charged yourself with accomplishing when you accept those interviews and bring those folks onto your airwaves?
I have the same responsibility that I feel with anything, and that's just let me get the truth to our community, to the best of my ability. Like, I think our people perish from a lack of information, and I don't want us to make assumptions about anything. I want them to, hear it straight from the person, and for me, man, I want Black political culture. Like, I love what I've been watching the past couple of years, man, but I don't want it to stop.
Yeah.
Right.
And so when you say what you're watching, you mean the level of activism and participation?
Yeah, like I personally have never seen it like this. I mean, even with your race in Florida or Stacey Abrams' race in Georgia, like, I never saw the culture captivated by a statewide race before. We've seen it with presidential elections.
Right.
I've never seen that, and man, that was so encouraging. Even what we saw just happen in Georgia with the Senate seats, like the fact that everybody finally understood the concept of a president just can't do it by himself. A president needs the Senate. He needs, the House. He needs Congress behind him in order to get things done. Yeah. And even having Obama on last year and having Obama just break that down and as simple as Barack Obama could. You know what I'm saying? but for me to be there to push him and be like, well, you got to do a better job of messaging that. And he's like, man, that's what I got you for. But it's just like those little moments that you can put on Instagram and somebody realizes, like, this is why the Senate is important.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I just want to build this. I want us to just continue to have say in what happens in politics. And I think Black political culture, man, is just something that I really, really want to continue to grow. That's why I still want to have people on now, even when there's elections going on. Like, there's a mayor race in New York. We've had Andrew Yang on. Oh, man, we had another sister on who's running. I can't remember her name right now, but I like that. I like keeping the conversation going. That's why I like when Angela Rye pops up. Let's just keep the conversation going. When Teslin Figaro pops up, let's just keep the conversation going, because I want people to be engaged even when it's not elections. Because guess what's going to happen? And we're going to look up in a minute, and it's going to be the next Senate race.
Yep.
And you know, we're going to look up again, and it's going to be the next presidential election. So it's just like, let's stay on it now, so we don't have to get people engaged when those times come. Let's keep it going now.
That's right. That's as they say. If you stay ready, you don't have to get ready.
That's right.
And I will tell you, brother, I was like a not possible nominee for governor of the state of Florida, right? And when I went on your show, when you allowed me to come on, man, I was moving around the state of Florida, and it was the one thing I was hearing everywhere. Man, I heard about you. I didn't even know, man. I heard about you listening to the Breakfast Club. This is that and the third. And one of the cities where you were syndicated in Florida, Jacksonville, Florida, had not gone for a Democrat in the race for governor in like it had never.
Wow.
For a generation, right?
Wow.
Went from red to blue in the race when I ran for governor here in Florida. And I got to tell you, I credit the several times you allowed me to come on and the emphasis you put on Florida in the governor's race to inspiring a whole generation of people who may have otherwise walked right on past the process to engage in that process. And that's why the responsibility question, and it's good to hear you speak about it with the passion that you do, that this isn't a cycle you turn on and turn off, but that you keep building momentum around and forward, and you're pivotal. I think you know it, but I just want to reconfirm it, pivotal to that process. And I'm curious, have you all always thought about the Breakfast Club as not just a place to talk about celebrities and the people who everybody knows, but also in the tradition of, I guess you would, the Black church, as a place where you also integrate social justice and real movement building capacity? And is that a commitment you all are? I know you just renewed 5 years. Congratulations.
Thank
is
you.
that a commitment you know, I believe I've heard you already, but that you're committed to as a part of the arc of the work that you're doing?
Absolutely. Because I always say that, you know, you got to be the perfect balance of ratchetness and righteousness. You know what I mean?
I like that.
And I grew up on Tom Joyner, and I grew up on Doug Banks, and I didn't grow up on Petey Green, but I've studied Petey Green. And,
Right.
you know, those are brothers who use their platform and radio to not raise money for HBCUs, to get Black politicians in office, you know, to raise money for different, you know, Black organizations. So for me, that's been something that I've always felt like I had to do. Malcolm X said that, you know, the person who controls the media controls the minds of the masses. So you can go back and look at any point in my career. Even when I was in South Carolina, I got in trouble for, you know, interviewing the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan in 2005.
Yeah.
Playing him on my radio station, Hot 103.9 in Columbia, South Carolina. So you go look at the beginning of the Breakfast Club, there's always been those people who had, you know, things to say of socially redeeming value. You know, we've had the aforementioned Minister Farrakhan on, Dick Gregory, you know, just anybody who has real powerful things to say, Sister Soldier, you know. First politician we had on was Bakari, right? Bakari Sellers.
Yeah, South Carolina homeboy.
South Carolina, and that was just my homie running for lieutenant governor.
Yep.
And I know Bakari is just a smart brother.
Yep.
So why not have him on? So people can see something other than a Black man who's a rapper, see something other than a Black man who's a comedian. Like, man, this is a young Black brother who's cool, who speaks my language. Yeah. You know, but he's running for lieutenant governor. Like, Bakari, tell your story. So now Bakari's a New York Times bestseller. He's a big deal now. But you know, back then, that was just my homie, 2014. And he was on there, and he popped the Breakfast Club's political cherry. I say that all the time. And he actually is the reason Hillary ended up on the show.
Wow.
You know, and a lot of other people.
Wow.
So yes,
that's powerful.
I definitely take that. That's something that's always been at the forefront of my mind, whether people realize it or not.
So, Charlamagne, I got to say, with that, obviously, there's always two sides of the coin, right? Because you have also created a platform where maybe some voices who were being derided in the greater community or whose belief systems may fall out of the mainstream of your audience, and this cancel culture that exists today would compel you not to create a platform for their messages to be heard. And so I do have to ask, what is it? And I think you've got enough experiences of this to know where this question is based out of. But how do you balance between being able to have constructive dialogue with people who you may or may not disagree with creating a platform and lending a platform of credibility and legitimacy to people who, quite frankly, are there to entertain and not there for genuine engagement?
You hit it. You hit it on the head. You know, it's for people some people are there just to entertain. Some people truly trying to engage with the people. Early on, you don't know that. You know, early on, you don't know what a person's motive is. You know, I'm talking about early on in, you know, my career, especially with the Breakfast Club. You don't know what a person's motive is. But I think now, in this age of transparency that we live in, you could tell who's performing. Okay. And you could tell who's really genuine. So for the people that's just performing, I don't have no need to talk to them. You know what I mean? I don't have no need to, you know, elevate their voice and put them on the platform. But for the people who genuinely have something good to say, I don't have no problem having a conversation with them, even if I disagree with their ideologies, if I disagree with their politics. You know, I think we definitely saw that the past 4 years in a very unique way because of there's a difference between Trump supporters and regular conservatives, right?
Yeah. Wow.
But I mean, we see that a lot. The lines are so blurred now. Yeah. But prior to Trump, I knew plenty of Republicans. I knew black Republicans. Yeah. Right. And they were just about that almighty dollar. Yeah. They wanted. They would tell you, I vote Republican because, you know, Republicans, you know, they make sure the economy's flowing. That was it. It was all about business for them. They get their tax cuts, whatever else. But there was this weird blurred line the past 4 years because it was like some of these black conservatives turned into Trump supporters and like you didn't know what their motives was anymore. Because there's no way, I know Republicans that weren't standing by the Trump shit.
Of course.
They didn't agree with what Trump was doing. They agreed, they loved their conservative values and policies, but they did not agree with Donald Trump, the human. And a lot of those people I know personally voted for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. But there was a group of black people who were still riding so hard for Trump. And you just didn't know why. I'm like, are you doing this because you're getting attention? Yeah. Or do you really truly believe that they're the best, that he's the best person for the job? They would say it's like Black America, he's done more for Black America than any president ever. And it was just like, I entertained a couple of those conversations just because I wasn't sure. Yeah. You know what I mean? But I think a lot of them were honestly just performing.
Listen, man, in the first in the first election of Trump, you talked about being in your neighborhood and seeing all these Trump signs go up. I have to tell you, man, and I'm interested to know where you are now because now we've had another election come past. I felt then a certain way when I saw those signs go up. This last election, though, it has been very, very difficult for me to disassociate the overt racist from like, I just vote Republican because of abortion or whatever the thing might be. In fact, I have to be even more honest than that. I did not make the disassociation this last time. I'm curious, have you evolved from your reaction from the first time, the first go around when you saw the Trump signs in your neighbor's yards to this election? Or how do you make sense of that? How do you square up whether or not you're dealing with folks who are just housing racist attitudes versus we got philosophical differences?
Nah, all that did the second time around was confirm it for me. Yeah. Not only did it confirm it for me, it terrified me even more. And the way my anxiety is set up, it went even more through the roof because now these people are after 4 years, they were way more emboldened. Yep. Than they were 4 years prior. 4 years prior, it was like, that's our guy, Trump. Go Trump. Keep talking that talk. Keep talking that talk. But they were keeping their mouth closed.
Yeah, right. Which is why we were so surprised. Yeah.
But 4 years later, he had everybody talking with him. Yeah. You know, and for me, man, there's no turning back from that. You know, like I can't unsee what I saw. Yeah, yeah. The person shows you who you are, you have to believe them. That's why even with what happened at the Capitol building on January 6th, I'm like, I don't see how any person who's not on the side of right in that situation. And
Yeah.
notice I said right. I didn't say Democrat, Republican.
Right.
It's about right and wrong in that situation, good or bad. I don't understand how anybody that's right and good can feel comfortable around any of those people who still choose to be on the wrong side of history.
I don't get it.
Like, there's no way. I don't understand. I don't understand how those people are even still in Congress.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be honest with you. I think they're trying to vote all of them out, just like they're trying to vote out that
Green.
Marjorie Green chick.
Yep.
Like, I don't get it. Like, I really don't. Like, I cannot unsee what I saw.
Yeah.
You decide, now you got to stay there.
Yep. So now Democrats are in control of the House, the Senate, if even by one tie-breaking vote of the vice president, and the White House. We've obviously heard Joe Biden talking a lot about bringing people together in time for healing and that sort of thing, which I admire the sentiment. Because if what you're telling me is you want me to be more polite, I can do that. But what I cannot do is I can't subjugate the feelings about public policy change that I think are absolutely required and necessary. I'm curious in this moment, seeing that Democrats hopefully have learned the lesson since Obama's time as president, that Republicans, as nice as they may talk and as much as they may want to call for unity today, when they have power, they're unapologetic about the wielding of that power to whatever ends they deem are necessary and required. Do you have a sentiment, a feeling, a belief, a hypothesis around whether or not the Joe Biden as president of the United States that we're going to experience is going to govern for the folks who sent him there? Or do you get a sense that there's going to be this capitulating, and through that capitulation, certain communities and certain interests may be tossed to the side?
I definitely feel like, certain interests in certain communities are going to be tossed to the side. I mean, even now, like, man, I can't sit here and act like I'm impressed because, I'm seeing all these executive orders happen, but I'm sitting back wondering, where are the protections for the people who saved your political career? Yet again, Mr. Biden, which is black people. I've seen Biden sign executive orders to protect the LGBTQ community, which is great. I'm seeing agendas for Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders, which is great. But I gotta ask, where is that for black people? I mean, all last year they literally ran on the back of George Floyd. They ran on the back of Breonna Taylor. Like, they ran on the back of, what was happening in the street with the Black Lives Matter movement and the George Floyd Policing Act. That was a big point of contention between Democrats and Republicans. It made a lot of people say, I'm voting for Dems because they care about the George Floyd Policing Act. They want to, get rid of qualified immunity, like things that could actually protect us against law enforcement. But I'm like, I know it's early, but I felt like something like that should have been done immediately.
Yeah.
And listen, I'm not saying it's not going to happen. I'm just saying,
sure. No, I hear you.
Right now, I just hate when it's always feels like black people got to wait.
Yeah.
like how much longer do we have to wait? Like, we're always the ones being told to wait, except for when it's election time.
Yeah.
When it's election time, they want us to be first in line. When it comes time, once they're in office, wait, and looking at the administration and how beautifully diverse it is.
Yeah.
From our vice president to, people like Cedric Richmond being the senior advisor. I love it.
Yeah.
But why do we have to wait? Certain things need to be done now. We saw what happened in this country last year. Do something right now that makes us feel good.
Yeah.
Because I'm telling you, once again, before we know it, it's going to be midterms. Before we know it, it's going to be the presidential election again, and you're going to be right back in a position trying to convince people to come out and vote for you.
Yeah.
You're not going to have that devil that you can point at and say anything is better than this. You're not going to have that.
That's right.
So you got to energize people now, and you know how you energize people? By simply doing what you promised you were going to do.
Showing them you do it.
That's it.
Yeah. Well, I'm telling you, man, I'm hopeful, and I receive your point around actions that have to require now, that actions that are required to be taken now to preserve Black life. Mm-hmm. We're not talking, economics is huge, And I'm loving at least what I think I may be hearing about national contracting, federal contracting, and requirements to bring us to the table, qualified vendors to the table. That's important. But there are steps and actions that can be taken in this moment that preserves Black life. And I think that's absolutely necessary. I got to ask you, I've heard you wax on about reparations. I wonder, is that a subject that you anticipate giving a lot more pressure to under this administration, led by, under Democratic control, frankly? That we see movement there. There's already obviously been movement in the House with the passage of a resolution to study. You got it. You went up there and met on Capitol Hill regarding it. That's exactly right. But what kind of heat can we be bringing to make this thing less? I hear people 40 acres and a mule. But what is the 21st century version of that? And how do we get about the business? Yes, the studying, but also the action of.
Listen, I'm not the expert on reparations in any way, shape, or form, but I do think words matter.
Yeah.
Sadly, we live in a society where certain things are non-starters for people, right? Defund the police is a non-starter. It shouldn't be, but it is. Mm-hmm. Reparations is a non-starter. It shouldn't be, but it is. Yeah. So, maybe change the wording to economic equity packages, right? Because there's nobody who can deny the fact that America needs to atone for its original sin, which is slavery. In order for this country to properly heal and for us to really be the United States of America and not the divided states of America, America has to acknowledge that it did, a group of its citizens wrong and still continues to do those citizens wrong. And a lot of those, systemic things that happened to us, from slavery to Jim Crow segregation to mass incarceration, it has led us to be in the redlining. It's led us to be in the position that we're in now. So it's just like, yes, it has to be some type of atonement for that. And I don't know what those payments or those payouts look like, but it has to be some type of economic equity package for the African descendants of slaves. It has to be.
Yeah. I mean, for moral reasons, as you've already laid out clearly, and also, as you have pointed out, the structural systems that run not just this country, but the world.
That's right.
Are built on the big lie, which was that Black folk ain't human. That's right. And codified in law that we weren't citizens and 3/4 a person and so on and so forth. The original sin wasn't just a moral error for our country, but that it also allowed and was the foundation under which every system that was built and that has survived to this day was created on and premised on and has been now structured to systemically disadvantage Black folks in America. And so part of that atonement is moral, a huge moral indictment, but also as equal to that, a huge indictment for our advancement in every single way, shape, and form. And just because you see examples of Leonard, Charlamagne, and others who have survived and persisted through it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. It just means that they were part of the lucky few who have been able to navigate all those structures and systems to arrive where they are. I hate that example. We had a Black president. Well, Charlamagne is running his own enterprises and such and such and such. If we can name them, that's a problem.
Absolutely, because how much farther along would we be without those restrictions? How much farther along would we be if we weren't, starting at the starting line with chains on our feet? You know what I mean? How much farther along would we be? Like I was thinking, I don't know why I was thinking about this on the way home, but I was thinking about how even now we live in this society where people talk about, ownership a lot, as we should. Yeah. We always talk about owning the content.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. When the reality is, man, we got to own the platforms. Like we can't just be content creators. We got to be platform creators.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like we got to be building the next Twitters, the next Instagrams, the next Facebooks. Like we have to be launching things like the Black Effect Podcast Network. Like we have to create these platforms as well as, you know, create the content. We're great at creating content. That we know. Black people create some content. But we have to be great at creating the platforms to put this content on. That's when the real generational wealth talk starts.
Yeah. Well, you're doing just that, Charlamagne. With our surviving time, I want to ask a few questions that may be quick, maybe not be. But let me ask you, what was the last moment that was a pinch yourself moment? When was you interact with a whole bunch of people, lots of celebrities, lots of names people know. That may or may not be it, but you just had to, man. Is this God? Is this what you're doing? Is this what this is?
I mean, I'm not even lying to you. I do that so much. And the reason I do that so much, because, you know, sometimes, I mean, it can be something as simple as looking at my phone and looking at my last 4 calls. I did that this week, looking at like my last 4 calls and the people
who you were talking to.
That I was talking to. And it's like, wow, right? And some of these people are mind-blowing to me because it's people that I looked up to and idolized my whole life. Some of it is mind-blowing to me because it's people that I came up with.
Yeah.
And now people look at them like, you know, yo, that's such and such. But to me, that's my peoples, right?
Yeah.
Together. I've been in this business since 1998. So I remember this person when they didn't have an album out, or when they didn't have a movie or didn't have a TV show, but we all just grew together. So man, that happens a lot. You know, and it's always funny when things happen around other people. Like, you know, just say if I remember one time taping my podcast and it was my phone was like up, right? And it was like
you could see who was calling.
Everybody could see who was calling. And this was like a few months ago. And they was like, oh my God, they're calling you right now. And I'm like, yeah, you know what I mean? And this is a huge person in the world of politics now.
Yeah.
You know, so it was like, so stuff like that I don't take any of that for granted. You know what I mean? Because it just lets me know that, you know, God has me here for a real specific reason. And I'm never one of those people who gets used to stuff like that. Not coming from where I come from. I come from a dirt road in South Carolina, man. You know what I'm saying? Like some of these people literally provided the soundtrack to my life through music. Judy Blume sent me an autographed copy of "Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret" for Christmas. She sent it to me and my daughter, and she put the Charlamagne from your fan Judy Blume.
Wow.
And she put like a little note in there, and I'm like, you don't even think about it. Like I've been talking about Judy Blume my whole life, my whole career. You know, I'd be on various platforms because people ask me, you know, what type of books inspired me when I was younger. And like Beverly Cleary and Judy Blume were like some of the first books that I read because of the Book It program and because my mother said to me, read things that don't pertain to you. So I've spoken about this woman so much, and people ask me, what's my dream interview? I'm like, I want to interview Judy Blume, and she's seen that.
Wow.
You got an 80-year-old white woman down in Florida watching me just speak about her, and that makes her happy. That makes her smile. So stuff like that, I'm like, that's Judy Blume?
I love it.
So, you know, it's a million of them. I couldn't even tell you one because it literally happens to me all the time. I don't take none of it.
You know what? You're telling us everything by just saying that. It means these moments, regardless of how big you get and how big people perceive you to get, you can still be impacted for it. And the Judy Blume story you just shared was another example of your words being put into the atmosphere, coming back to reaffirm and to confirm themselves. And so that's awesome, man. Summarize for me, if you don't mind, the last sermon or speech or conversation you had and you were moved and inspired by it. What was the tone of the message? What was...
Bishop T.D. Jakes, man. I watch Bishop T.D. Jakes every Sunday.
Man, you both.
Yeah, I think it was 2 weeks ago. I think it was the... what was the name of the sermon? Trauma. I can't remember the exact name. I know trauma was in the title, but that one resonated with me heavy. And it was another one I was sending out. Oh, I can't remember the name of it, but the trauma one resonated with me heavy, man. Bishop T.D. Jakes says something every Sunday
Yeah. Just move.
That hits me in a different way, man. I mean, every single Sunday. So I mean, I love TD Jakes. I follow him on Instagram. I love sitting down having conversations with him. It's because of Bishop TD Jakes and Tyler Perry that I finally got to a place of worthy. And what I mean by that is, like, I sat down and had a conversation with Bishop TD Jakes once, and we were just talking about a whole bunch of different things, and we got to talking about imposter syndrome, and he read in my book where I talked about, you know, being molested at age 8, and he said to me, you know, people who've been molested when they were younger, they always lack self-worth. You know what I'm saying? They always feel insecure. They always feel like they're not good enough. And man, he hit it on the head for me, because even when that woman was doing that to me, when I made her stop, she would call me ugly and tell me I had a big nose and all that stuff. So when I was 8 years old, I felt that feeling of, damn, I'm not good enough because I'm not giving you what I want. So even as I get giving you what you want. So even as I got older, even now, it's something I deal with. Like my therapist always says, like, you have the need to please people. You don't want to let people down, even if it's to your own detriment, right? So that's tied to that as well. But I remember Bishop T.D. Jakes said to me, man, like, I want you to know that like you are worthy. Yeah. Even if you don't feel worthy, God knows you're worthy. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And Bishop told me that based off a conversation he had with Tyler Perry. And then there's this great video online about Tyler talking about worthiness. And I had a conversation with Tyler about it too, personally. And Tyler said, man, when you finally get to that place of worthy, just watch how your life explodes. Just watch how everything you've ever wanted, everything you've ever thought about will manifest in your life. And I remember December 2019, sitting upstairs in my room, and I literally just popped up like, yo, I'm worthy. My Lord. I'm worthy. Like I can't explain it. I just finally got to that place. And then it's like, even though the pandemic happened in 2020, so many great things opened up for me, man. Like, you know, like you talked about the renewal with iHeart, you know, having a title at iHeart now, you know, and being an executive at iHeart, but also launching the Black Effect Podcast Network, where I'm 51% majority owner. Yeah. You know, me and Kevin Hart, we launched the company at Audible, where I'm 50% owner. I got my book imprint with Simon & Schuster, which is Black Privilege Publishing. We got our first release coming out May 11th, 2021, which is Tamika Mallory, State of Emergency. Yes. Like, yeah, they both were right. I got to that place of worthy in a real way, and life just opened up. Expanded. Oh my God, man. Jeez, my God. Oh my God. So that's my message to anybody, man. Even if you're dealing with some type of imposter syndrome and you don't feel like you're supposed to be in the position that you're in, just know God has you there for a reason. That's right. You are who you are because God wants you to be. That's it. Man, I tell you, so many of us know those words and haven't allowed them into our heart. And it feels good to hear you say it. For me, it feels like an opening in my heart. Okay, so listen, we got 4 minutes remaining. What is your guilty pleasure? Give me, what is that thing when nobody has to know, but now we want to know? I don't know. Pornhub maybe? But Pornhub is a guilty. Okay, well, I mean, that happens. I don't know if it's a guilty pleasure, but I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if I have any guilty pleasure, because honestly, there's nothing I feel guilty about. If I enjoy it, I enjoy it. You know what I mean? State of mind. The stuff you feel guilty about is the stuff you don't tell nobody. You know what I mean? There's nothing I do that I wouldn't tell anybody about. You know what I'm saying? Like, I like doing edibles. I like drinking tequila. Like, I don't know if I have a guilty pleasure. It's all, hey, listen, I love the answer, because the truth is you ought to be doing what is in your happiness. And sometimes the stuff we consider doing in the dark is the only reason why it's in the dark is because we think it's socially unacceptable, and therefore we don't, we can't say nothing about it. But when you integrate that thing in a real way, then you don't have to have shame around it. And so I appreciate that. I just told somebody that I was like, what? Somebody said something is weird. I'm like, what is weird? Weird is subjective. You may think it's weird, but to somebody else, it's perfectly normal. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it could be something as simple as like, I put mayonnaise on hot dogs. I don't do that. Right? I think that I'm like, but other people was like, nah, that's what I do. That's normal. So it's like, yo, what is weird? Like, there's no such thing as weird. And I can't go with society's normals. Cause I think if anything, if over the last 4 years, if we learned anything, whatever was normal in America wasn't working.
Ain't no more.
So when people say things like, let's go back to normal, what does that even mean?
Yep.
I don't even know what that means. So it's just like Miguel has a great song that I like, and that's the hook of the song. What's normal anyway?
Yeah. I like that. Charlamagne, are you in this moment living your best life?
Man, that's a great question. I think, yeah, I believe so. But there's always room for improvement. I can always be better. You know, I've had some triggers the past couple of weeks. You know what I'm saying? I've had, you know, and just being honest, like, I worked with Wendy Williams for 3 years. So seeing them the past couple of weeks, and Wendy, I got love for Wendy. I pray for her healing and stuff like that. I don't rock with her husband at all. But it's just like, yeah, that was a trigger for me. And it felt bad to go back to that place. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, it felt bad to have the thought of somebody take me there to say the things that I was saying, right? And it just, you know, one of our good friends, Yachty, you know, our secret purpose coach, like Yachty just told me, like, when it comes to forgiveness and healing, it's a constant thing. Like, we're constantly letting things go.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, we may be over something, and then you hear something or see something, and it triggers you, and it takes you right back to that place that you had grown and evolved from. So it was just like, you're constantly letting things go, and just having that conversation with Yachty was very freeing for me, because it was just like, man, I thought I had like backslided all the way. Wagon.
Hey, man.
But I didn't. You know, it was just like, that's just the way life is. I think that we have these misconceptions of, I forgive that person. And probably really don't. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it's fine.
Yeah.
It's just a work in progress, you know, but I guess I'm living my best life. Like I said, I have those moments, and because that was so recent, I have those moments where I'm like, man, you not nowhere where you need to be. And by the way, that's probably fine too.
Yeah.
If I felt like I was where I needed to be, or felt like I was in a perfectly good space, I might slow down on doing the work.
Yeah, brother.
I don't ever
up there. Work. You're up there, man. And I just want to share, man. I love Yachty, and I thank you and Angela for bringing her into my life. She has been a savior, and I mean that. But we go through these moments, and I think this is probably a great place to end, considering our conversation around this book, but just more broadly, is these moments where you feel like, God, I've made so much progress, and I've got this new practice, and I'm integrating these things in my life, and I'm reaching a place of wholeness and healing and personal acceptance and all that stuff. And then something happens. You use the word trigger, so I'll repeat it, and you get triggered, and you're like, God damn, man, I'm still fucked up.
That's right.
And I have those moments, man, and I feel like, golly, I don't want to have to go back through the same disastrous 2019 and early 2020 that I had in order to learn that lesson again.
Right.
So I appreciate your renewal of, and I guess for the folks who are listening, just the idea that this process that we're all maturing into, this better self that hopefully we're all working on becoming, it is a journey, and it is a process. And you don't necessarily, I have to stop treating these lessons that I'm learning, and I don't know if you can relate to this, as a destination and then like check mark. I've got that check mark, got that skill set under my belt, and rather just experience it as a part of life. And in life, you have setups, disappointments, you know, so on and so forth, and you keep rolling with it and through it, and trying to every single day and in every moment of the day make the next best right decision for you.
That's right. That's it. You hit it on the head.
Well, I'm thankful to have Yachty in common with you. And I know Angela has evoked her name. I wasn't going to say it unless you said it. I know Angela has evoked her name as well, as someone who helps to keep us living, you know, on and in our purpose. Brother, to wrap this up, man, is there any news? Is there anything going? I mean, there's so much going on in your life, as I've read. But what is popping on the horizon right now that has you the most inspired?
Honestly, what has me most inspired, man, is the Black political culture I was talking about earlier.
Yeah.
But not just the Black political culture, the grassroots organizations that are on the ground, you know, who have been, you know, pushing things, you know, whether it's Until Freedom or, you know, even the fair fight, you know,
Yes.
New Act that Stacey them was doing, like just seeing us so politically motivated, you know.
Yeah.
And not only that, but just, you know, watching what everybody's doing, you know, as far as like business is concerned. The fact that you have these companies and these corporations who are finally giving Black people their just due, and not only just not giving, because nothing is given, but demanding their just due based off the work that we've put in. You know, I'm inspired when I see, you know, Black people getting different positions, when I see Black people, you know, getting equity certain places. You know what I mean? The fact that we're all able to empower us, and we're being intentional. Empowering us. You know what I mean? Because it's nothing if you in the seat and you're not using that power and that leverage to empower another Black person. To me, like, you just wasting your time.
Yep.
Right. So I'm inspired by us right now. I'm inspired by Black people. Like, this is a new wave of Black pride, a new wave of Black power. When I wrote my first book, Black Privilege, everybody was giving me flack for that title. Like, oh, you know, there's no such thing as Black privilege. You know, this, that, you cooning, you being an Uncle Tom. There's only white privilege. And I was trying to explain to people, Black privilege was not something that was systemic. It was something that was spiritual. I was saying that it's a privilege to be Black. It's an honor to be Black. I love having all of this melanin, right? And it starts with that love and embrace of yourself. And then once you do that, the systemic stuff we can build and create on our own.
That's it.
And I think that's what we're doing right now. And it's a beautiful thing to see.
I love it, man. You know what? You are one of the reasons why so many of us are feeling renewed strength. You are an example of somebody coming from experiences that a lot of folks in our community can relate to. And by you succeeding and excelling, and setting an example for us, honestly, it really does inspire us to believe, man, all right, I can get back. I can do this. I can, you know, I can heal. I can get my stuff back together. T.D. Jakes gave a sermon once that he said, God never takes anything from you that you need, right? So anything that we lost is not required for where he's trying to take us.
Right.
So I appreciate you just edifying that through your experience and through your example, brother. Ladies and gentlemen, y'all have gotten to hear the voice of a man who refuses to be defined by others. Every day, it seems, every chapter, you're redefining and reemerging and re-evolving as just another mogul and a good and honest father and husband. And a girl dad 3 times over, to be exact. And more than anything, a man by whom I personally take inspiration. And I know that sentiment is shared by so many around the country and the world. So Charlamagne, thank you for your time. Much love to you, brother. And thank you for everything you're doing.
Appreciate you, AG. Peace.
Always, man.